Hello, and today's learning target is I can solve equations with variables on both sides by using the distributive property and or combining like terms when necessary. Let's take a look at the first example. Okay, we have negative 7x minus 3x plus 2 equals negative 8x minus 8. Well, what I want to do is I want to get the variables on one side of the equation. So I want to move over the negative 8x here, but before I do that, I'm actually going to combine my left-hand side because I see some like terms. So I see negative 7x minus 3x, and that gives me negative 10x, and then I have plus 2 equals negative 8x minus 8. And now I want to move over that negative 8x because I want all the variables on one side of the equation and all the other numbers on the other side of the equation. So I'm going to add 8x to both sides. And when I do that, negative 10x plus 8x is negative 2x plus 2, so I bring that 2 down, equals negative 8. Now I'm going to isolate my variable, so I'll get rid of this 2, and I get negative 2x equals negative 10. Last step to solve for x and to isolate my variable will be to divide by negative 2. So negative 10 divided by negative 2 is 5. Now I'm going to check my work by plugging 5 back in to the equation wherever I see x. So 5 here, here, and here. And I'm going to use my calculator to double check my work. So I have negative 7 times 5 minus 3 times 5 plus 2. And I get negative 48 here on this left-hand side. So I'm going to write negative 48. And over on the right-hand side, I have negative 8 times 5 minus 8 equals negative 48. So I know that I'm right. I would suggest you checking your work with your calculator just as I had done in my calculator a little bit ago. Let's move on to the next example. 38 plus 7k equals 8 times k plus 4. Well, I see here that I have to distribute because I see parentheses with a number in front, which is the 8, so I'm going to distribute that 8 to everything inside the parentheses. So I'm left with 38 plus 7k equals 8k plus 32. Now I'm going to get the k's on one side of the equation, so I will subtract 8k, and then what I do is I get 38, and then 7k minus 8k is negative k, equals 32. I'll subtract 38 from both sides of the equation, and I get negative k equals 32 minus 38 is negative 6. However, I cannot have my variable here be a negative. So I will actually divide by a negative on both sides of the equation, and I get k equals positive 6. Now I want to check my work to make sure that I'm right. So I'm going to plug 6 back in where I see k here and here. So 7 times 6 is 42, and 38 plus 42 gives me 80. So this left-hand side turns out to be 80. If I plug in 6 here, 6 plus 4 is 10, so this comes to be 10, and 8 times 10 is 80, so 80 equals 80. We are right. Let's continue with these equations and going through some more examples. So I see here that I do need to distribute, so 4 times 1 and 4 times 5n, so I get negative 8n, and then plus 4 plus 20n equals negative 6n minus 14. And now I'm going to combine some like terms. I see a negative 8n plus 20, and negative 8 plus 20 is 12n plus 4 equals negative 6n minus 14. I'm going to get the n's on the left-hand side and then the other numbers on the right-hand side, although it really doesn't matter what side that the variable ends up on. So if I add 6n to both sides, I get 18n plus 4 equals negative 14. Subtract 4 from both sides and get 18n equals negative 18. And let's divide by 18 here and get n equals -1 for my final answer. Let's write that a little neater. And then now I'm going to check my work. So I'm going to plug into my calculator -1. So follow along with me. -8, and then I'm putting in a parenthesis. I'm going to put in -1 right here. So -8 times -1 plus 4, parenthesis, 1 plus, and then 5 times -1 we know is -5. So I'm just going to change that to a 1 minus 5. And then that equals -8. So I get -8 on this left-hand side. So now let's look at the right-hand side. I'm going to plug -1 in here. So -6 times -1 is 6 minus 14 equals -8. So -8 equals -8. We are right. So a good thing always to check our answer. Okay, now I'm going to look at the next example. I am going to distribute here this 4, and -6n minus 20 equals -2n plus 4 minus 12n. And when I do that, I see I can combine some like terms here. So my -6n minus 20 on the left-hand side stays as it is, but this -2 minus 12 is -14n plus 4. I'm going to get the n's on my left-hand side, so I'll add 14n. And -6 plus 14 gives me 8n minus 20 equals 4. I will add 20 to both sides. And 8n equals 24. If I divide by 8 on both sides, I get n equals 3. And again, let's plug our answer back into the original equation just to continue to check our answers and know that we are correct. So I'm going to plug in 3 here, and -6 times 3 is -18, minus 20 is -38 on this left-hand side. That's what I get when I plug in 3. Over here, -2 times 3 is -6, plus 4 times parenthesis, 1 minus, and then 3 times 3 here is 9, so I'm just going to change that to a 9. So 1 minus 9, and then I'll close the parenthesis. I get -38, so I know I'm correct, and that n equals 3 is right. Okay, looking at the next equation, again, these are complex equations that we need to use the distributive property and combine like terms. So let's continue with this problem. So 7 times 5a is 35a minus 28 minus 1 equals 14 minus 8a. Let's get the variables on the left-hand side, but I'll first combine those like terms. So 35a minus 29 equals 14 minus 8a. And now I'm going to get the variables on the left-hand side, so I'll add 8a. And when I do that, 35 plus 8 is 43a minus 29 equals 14. I'll add 29 to both sides to isolate my variable. And I get 43a equals 14 plus 29 is 43. So it looks like I will get 43 divided by 43 is 1 for an answer. And again, let's practice checking our work. So if I plug in 1 here and here, 7 times parenthesis, 5 times 1 is just 5, minus 4, close parenthesis, minus 1 gives me 6. Please make sure you get that in your calculator. And then 14 minus 8 times 1 is just 8 times 1 is 8, so 14 minus 8 is 6, and 6 does equal 6, so we know that we're right. All right, last example from the video. Here we go. Let's get started. I'm going to distribute the 4 to both terms inside the parentheses, and I get -32x plus 20 equals -32x minus 26. And I'll subtract 20. Well, before that, I'll move the x's over. Let's add 32x, add 32x. And when I do that, -32x plus 32x is 0x, so I'm left over with 20, and that equals 26, -26, and does 20 equal -26? No, it doesn't. So what does this mean? this means that I have no solution to this problem. So there's nothing here to check over just to make sure I did the math right, but I can't plug anything back in. So again, if I double check, 4 times negative 8x is negative 32x plus 20 equals negative 32 minus 26. Even if I move the 32x over, that cancels out to be 0x, and 20 does not equal 26, negative 26, so I have no solution. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.